All right, so we're back here, and I kind of wanted to spend a few moments going over some of the Packback questions. So what I end up doing is that, so each week, right, like I'll go over for Packback questions that you guys have posted, and I just go through and pick out ones that, immediately catch my eye. And this doesn't mean that these are, supremely better than others or they're much worse than others or anything like that. But the goal is that, these are just ones that I picked. There's a lot of great questions, and I'm covering questions from both sections of the course that I teach. So you're hearing opinions and views from people who may not be in the same section as you. But you guys both are in theory, so it just makes sense to cover the topic because you guys are sort of like learning from both communities this way. So anyway, it's time to take a look through some questions today, and again, these are not to say that any one of them are good or bad. These are just ones that caught me, and this is something that, depending on interest, right, we'll see what happens, right? So let's take a look at one question that came up. This is from Ulysses Maldonado, and they ask, considering how men commit more violent crimes than women, is it a possibility that when transgendered women are murdered by straight men, it is due to the fact that the men struggle with their identity? So it goes on, gives a quote from DeLisi, talks about extreme psychopathology, there's multiple homicide offending, sexual sadism. It's mostly, committed by men. And so this person's asking, so when men kill transgendered women, I guess cisgendered men, is it because there's sadistic behavior for sexual fantasies? So maybe there is a sexual incidents where they get off on this kind of crime and they feel the need to murder innocent women and gender nonconforming people. So, so let's think about that for a second, right? So there are almost certainly people who, when they have motivations, right, maybe they have a desire for control in society, right? So, if you think they want to have a power over someone, right? If you think about the way that our society is structured, many people who are gender nonconforming or transgendered or of just a non-traditional gender identity, are exposed, right? They are a vulnerable population. Not, I'm sure it is difficult to exist in a world that isn't necessarily welcoming or friendly in all aspects. So you kind of have this weak vulnerability. So one could make an argument that people who kill, or men that kill trans people are, prey upon that, right? The other part is that there is a segment of our society that is very much influenced by hate. This led to the creation of hate crimes, right? Which tends to enhance the punishment for someone if a crime was committed because of a hate towards a particular group. I am less familiar on hate crimes. I leave that up to Professor Brian Levin, who specializes in this work and speaks a lot about hate crimes across the world. I highly recommend you take one of his classes. And so watch some of his videos because he's always on the news talking about the state of hate, both in the United States and California. But the point being is that some people are ingrained to hate things that are different from them, right? And so if you see something that is different from your point of view, some people react well. It's an opportunity to grow, learn, or whatever. And other people feel wrong or they feel icky, and it is something that goes against the way that they believe, or maybe they feel like they're going wrong or something like that. In some cases, perhaps they're repressing something about themselves, or they're just sick people, and there's something about a vulnerable population or a certain population that really enhances the experience for them in terms of killing. So to say, which one is or which one is why, it's really different, but it would be interesting to see what y'all think about why do you guys think hate crimes exist like that, or why are certain segments or populations targeted, or why some certain groups are targeted more than others, right? So does that say something more about the group that is targeted, or is that more just about the individual? And how does one go about correcting that kind of thing, right? Because you could say, outside this group, right, is it something that's ingrained from a societal standpoint, where if you think about lynchings that have occurred in the United States, is that something about society that's put in that says, this is kind of messed up and you should, outlaw this and they should be eliminated, right? Which is a very harsh, cruel thing, but is there something about our society that is, maybe subtly permissive of that kind of action or behavior, right? if that's the case, how do we go about correcting that, right? Because if we identify a problem, what is our solution to it, right? So, again, love this kind of question because it's not something that, was like explicitly covered in book. It's thought-provoking. It's something that has a lot of great, opportunities to discuss not only violence against LGBTQIA plus populations, but other groups as well. Covers violent crime. And I encourage all of you to explore a little bit more and think about it. So thank you again, Ulysses, for sharing this response.